Yo, what is up, it's your boy JadeJonny back here in Perrim's Underworld. How you doing today? Today I wanted to talk a little bit about chaotic, because chaotic, it doesn't make sense. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, the world of chaotic doesn't make sense. But before I jump into that, why don't you guys go ahead and subscribe to the channel and like the video so that I know that you guys like these kind of discussion videos. If you guys don't like these kind of discussion videos, tell me down in the comment section down below you want me to stick to gameplay or something else, right? But today I want to take a look at the world of chaotic, like not just chaotic and Perrim itself, but like, the outside world as well. So, let's start off by talking about the world of chaotic, like chaotic itself, not, external or Perrim. So, chaotic doesn't make sense because a lot of players in the outside world would know about chaotic even if they didn't get their transport code. I mean, this is the early 2000s we're talking about when forums are at their biggest aspect. Like, this is the time period when, forums were everywhere. Like if you wanted a game forum for anything, you'd have a forum for it. I mean, like even in chaotic itself, they reference, forums being a thing and, people talking online. Now, chaotic wouldn't be a secret. It really wouldn't. I mean, like whenever Tom gets his transport code, he's like really skeptical about it. People would talk about the fact that whenever they put in their transport code, that the scanners would, go effectively dead, right? And I think that, Tom would, hear about that. And if he doesn't hear about that, I mean, like, a person would check the online forums to see if other people had this issue before throwing out their scanner. I mean, especially with somebody, like who's listening to an MP3 player. I mean, in that time period was a super tech savvy thing, right? So it's really strange to me that, Tom threw out his scanner whenever, like his scanner stopped working. I mean, like after he put in his transport code. Next up, another thing that doesn't make sense to me, how the drone battles work. So Tom's first match was against Sam Shady, and Sam Shady is known for like sniping noobs, right? Why would you put somebody known for sniping noobs up against a noob? I mean, that's like kind of messed up. Not gonna lie, right? So do they like randomly assign it? If so, then how is Sam Shady known for sniping noobs? That's really weird that he's known for sniping noobs. If he's like I mean that's a weird assignment. Either that or it's the codemasters being a dick. I mean that's also a possibility, right? Another thing that really confuses me about chaotic is if players don't know about chaotic, right, and they don't know about porting to Perrim and stuff like that, right? Whenever they port to Perrim and their scanners stop working, how do they know they need to that they're like Tom, right? If there wasn't forums or anything about that where people could like learn about chaotic and stuff like that, wouldn't most people just kind of like like throw away their scanners or put them in like a cubby hole and never like touch them again? I mean, like this seems like a huge a huge issue on behalf of the codemasters, right? Another thing that's weird is the codemasters send out codes in batches. You hear somebody in the first episode the first episode talking about how like they're getting a new batch of newbies in, right? So you send them out in batches, right? And apparently players know about that. So what's weird is the codemasters don't send the players any kind of message telling them, hey, this is Codemaster Krellin. Go ahead and put this code in, and you'll get to port to Perrim or something like that, right? That seems like an important message you should probably attach to the code whenever you send it to him. It's also really weird that Tom was really skeptical about the code because I mean, like it's an official message from Chaotic, from the Chaotic game itself. I mean, I mean, like he recognizes it's chaotic mail, so it's really weird that he didn't just input the code right away. Because I mean, that seems like the thing that would make the most amount of sense if you're given an official code, to put it into the game, right? That makes sense to me. I mean, I mean, it could be crazy, but that makes sense to me. All right, so I mean, we've talked a little bit about chaotic now, right? We've talked about how chaotic in the outside world, should go together. You should know about chaotic if you're in the outside world because there should be forums and stuff like that. And when you're in the outside world, you should like you'd be skeptical about like your scanners and stuff like that breaking, especially considering there's no like messages from the codemasters or any official like chaotic source whenever you do port to Perrim, right? But now let's talk about Perrim because I think Perrim makes the least amount of sense, right? So when you port to Perrim, you don't have any abilities like creatures do. You just are like a normal person there, right? And if you die in Perrim, you die. You don't respawn. There is no respawn timer, right? But what I want to say is like it's weird you can still use the battle gear and stuff like that, right? There's no limitations on, access to battle gear that you have, right? So if you were to get a liquidizer, would you be allowed to use water attacks? If you get a Torweg, could you use wind attacks, or the likes of that, right? If you get a shard from ancient Perrim, would you be able to use like earth attacks, fire attacks, stuff like that, right? So that's really weird too, because it's like like what are the limitations to what you could do if you were in a location that gave everybody present a music counter. Could you cast a music as a player? That's that's another thing that brings up another interesting question, right? But I think the biggest question that really exists is time travel, because the players can travel back in time from what we've seen, and we've even seen an instance where players travel forward in time, at the Beehive location, where they went back to the past whenever Sarah turned into a child, right? We saw them port into the future after the Marillions had taken over. And that leads to another question of the Marillions were stopped before they took over. So was that an alternative timeline, or is that still the future? Is that like further ahead of time, or is that something that may come to pass, or that was avoided? And I mean, like, like a lot of questions in Chaotic don't make a lot of sense, right? But I really want to focus on those like first few that I was talking about, where the idea that Chaotic isn't like a widely known thing about like in the Chaotic card game community, right, is really weird to me, because like there's no reason for it not to be a huge discussion topic. I mean, it's really weird that players wouldn't know about Chaotic from the get go. I mean, especially if you're like an online player. It's really weird that like some of the top players, they just stop playing and they just like port to Chaotic and play in the online Chaotic. Not client, but like world, instead of playing on the client. So I don't know. I think Chaotic doesn't make much sense if you like start to like scrutinize it a bit, because I mean like this is the early 2000s, era. This is like 2006, 2007, when online forums were like becoming massive, right? So it's really weird to me to think that like there wouldn't be a forum dedicated to people in Perrim, like who can port to Perrim, who can port to Chaotic, or that people wouldn't be widely discussing it. I mean, obviously, there's no like NDA or anything like that, because Kaz talks about it all the time, right? So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like it doesn't make much sense. And then like once we get to Chaotic, we see it later on, that like players come from all over the world, right? So how are the players able to understand one another? Is there like like something about Chaotic that has a like universal translator? In an interview that Ganon did with I want to say it was a Rudd video. He said that Chaotic was a physical place. That the you would port to Chaotic and it was an actual physical location, not a game or a digital one. And that like if Earth like tried and reach it, it would take a lot of effort, but it could be possible, right? So, it's really weird to me, that like, yeah. I mean, it's like how do you understand one another when you're there? Like normally you could go like, oh, it's a game filtering language system, right? Like it's normally you could say something like that, but like there's it's not a game, like it's an actual physical location. So there should still be language barriers. You should still have people porting in and be speaking French, Spanish, like Latin. I mean, I mean, Russian, German. You should have a wide range of players who speak different languages, and there should be a language barrier. I mean, but it seems like they all default to English. And then when you port to Perrim, they also speak English. I mean, if I wanted to explain it away, I'd be like, oh, the transport, your scanner counts as a language translator, right? But then like we saw Ricky, he lost his scanner, and he couldn't, and he could still communicate with Mepedians and stuff like that. So, it's really Chaotic. Its world, it doesn't make sense. Its world building is really cool, don't get me wrong, but like if you deep dive into it, it doesn't make much sense. And I'm only thinking about this, right, because I've been rewatching the series and I've been taking notes on the series, right? And it's like anytime something interesting happens, I write it down, and like and as I'm rewatching it, I'm like, how does Tom not know about this? You know, like how do people not know about that? And I want to say like the biggest thing that doesn't make sense to me is how is Perrim not fully mapped out? Like like if I could port to Perrim, right, and I could like adventure, right, I wouldn't stop. I would port to Perrim, its adventure, for a while, scan the location or scan a location, right? Then I'd port back to Chaotic, rest, port back to Perrim, do it all over again, right? Like I wouldn't stop until I had mapped out like like a huge chunk of the world, if not more, and I'd probably work with other players to learn every single secret that's stored in Chaotic. But I mean, like if you if you look at what happened with Tom, right? He got the Prexor Chasm scan. Prexor Chasm is a location in Perrim. He could have found it without having to be given it by a codemaster. So it's one of those things where it's like it doesn't make much sense that players haven't gone through the effort of finding every single location, finding every single thing there is to know about Perrim. That doesn't make much sense to me. But hey, I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that there's a logical explanation for this? Do you think there's some kind of barriers that prevent people from just going from one location to another? Do you guys think that like if you scan a location in the beta, because like we see in like the third episode, we see like Tom go from the Riverlands to the Crystal Cave with Peyton, right? In a Jerome battle. So what would even stop it from like them using like creatures with high endurance and like exploring all of Perrim in like a beta Jerome battle? They're like I mean. I mean, there's a lot of like questions about the stuff like that, right? Like there's probably no time limit on how long you can be in a drone battle, right? Because we the like 100 and some odd creature battle between Peyton and Kaz, right? Was it no? It was Peyton and Tom. It was one of two. I want to say Peyton and Kaz. I can't remember. But there was the 100 some odd battle between them, and it took like so long that they literally fell asleep. So if you could, like get a creature, if you get two creatures with extremely high endurance, in one drone battle, like what would stop you from exploring like huge vast swaths of Perrim? Like it's one of those things where it's like I would like to ask these questions because I'd really like to know the answers, because these are like the hard-hitting questions. It's like what stops players from doing this? What stops an organized effort of players to explore all of Perrim? Like one person, like one group explores like the south of Chaor City, another group of players go east, northwest, and they expand out. Or like more groups go like northeast and southeast, like northwest, southwest. I mean, what stops players from grouping up in efforts like that? Because I feel like that's like one of the biggest things you'd want to do as a chaotic player, right? Is like find more creatures, find creatures other people haven't found, find locations other people haven't found. And then max your locations, find locations with powerful abilities that other people may have never seen before, like that can help you optimize your pathing. I think like if you were in chaotic, you would realistically make guilds of players who would do stuff like that. But I mean, I may also just be making this video because I need to go get my body back from Valheim, and it's going to be an extremely long trek, and I need something to put over it so I can feel like I'm not wasting time. And that may be why I'm doing videos like this, because I have screwed up in a video game, and I am trying to make up for it. By turning it into some form of content, so I don't feel like I'm wasting that time. But hey, who knows? Who knows? I mean, because you're watching me play Valheim. But yeah, what do you guys think down in the comment section down below? Tell me what you guys think, because I mean, like, a lot of this stuff, it doesn't make sense if you scrutinize it to a certain extent, because like, I mean, like, there's no reason, again, Tom wouldn't know about, chaotic being an actual thing, like, especially once he ports there. There's no reason that whenever the code turns off his scanner, he couldn't just go into a forum and find out. I think that, like, a lot of people kind of, like, hand-wave it because, like, like, oh, yeah, it stopped working, so of course he gets rid of it. But, I mean, like, come on, like, early 2000s, this is, you have access to forums. But anyways, tell me what you guys think down in the comment section below. If you guys like discussion videos like this, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell me that you guys like these kind of videos. And I will make sure to keep doing them. If you guys don't like them, like I said, tell me down in the comment section below you want match gameplay videos, because, I mean, like, I can do gameplay instead. So, Thank you guys for watching, and let's support to Perrim, and I'll see you in Chaotic.